I need to use this. Hello, good morning. Thank you all for joining the budget conversation for FY 2026. I'm Councilwoman at Large, Zulfa Swara. My co-host, Councilmember Quante Toombs, is delayed. She has car issues, so she'll be joining us. But for the sake of those that are here and those that are joining live, we wanted to make sure that we go ahead and get started. Today, we wanted to talk about a couple of things, and so that's why time is of the essence. We want to talk about the reappraisals. We want to talk about your property values, and then we want to go into the mayor's budget because all of that is tied in. I wanted to start with the reappraisals. The assessor of property is the office that is responsible for reappraising your properties. Assessor Vivian Wilhoit has been going around town talking about this, but I want to give just a general overview because people have been calling and asking. We have these reappraisals every 4 years. And basically, I was talking to someone today that I have a friend in Antioch that the value of the property went up so much. And they're like, why did it go up that much? Well, 4 years ago, we did not have the Tanger outlet in Antioch. And so when we're looking at reappraisals, we're looking at it countywide. We're looking at growth in each area. So you may not have done anything to your house. Maybe you did not fix it. It's still the same one you had 4 years ago without any major improvement. But the fact that there is growth going on in your neighborhood, the fact that there's growth going on countywide, all of that impacts your reappraisals. Another thing that I try to explain to people is that when we have different type of housing available, you have houses that are 500,000, you have houses in your neighborhood apartment that are 100,000, condos that are 200,000. That also affects what you have because the value of that area is now mixed. And so when people look at the property tax bill, and I can see the frustration and I understand the frustration, people should think in terms of where are we now? Where was Nashville 4 years ago? And if you drive around in your neighborhood and you drive around in town, remember that it's a multiple things that goes in there. If you make an improvement to your house, that affects your reappraisal. But if there's growth in your neighborhood, that affects your reappraisal. But then if there's growth countywide, that affects your reappraisal. And so those are the things that people have to be mindful of. One of the things that's been shared by the assessor of property, and their website is a very good source for some of this information. I'm going to pull up that website so we can take a look at it. And I have so many things open. There we go. For those in the audience, can you see my screen? Yeah. So if you go to nashville.gov, I'm sorry, the assessor of property website. I don't remember the EADCTN. I just type in assessor of property, and then it would just take you to this website. There's a host of questions about why we have to do the reappraisal. There's a lot of question on how is the rate established? And so for anyone that has a question, this is a very good resource. I don't want to go into the details of everything, but I just want to do like a general overview. And if you do have any question, they will be able to answer your question. But you're looking at the characteristics of your property, the location where your house is, the square footage of your house, the quality of the construction, amenities. All of that is what goes into the reappraisal. Now it says, does it change every year? No, it doesn't change it every year unless you make a major improvement. So you build a dadu in the back of your house, then the value will change. But if nothing changes, no major improvement to your house, then your value doesn't change until that 4-year cycle, when we now do a county-wide reappraisal. If you do something to your house, you can get a change every year. But if not, when the city change, when we're looking at everybody globally, is when you will have that reappraisal. One thing that I also wanted to share with all of you, I want to show you right here, if my screen is still being shared, is to show you the heat map for this year. And what it tells you is the rate at which property has gone up in Davidson County. And I think it's very important. This map is going to be critical when we start talking about the property tax rate and its impact on your taxes and things like that. But I wanted to show you in this conversation, the areas that are in light blue are very low. The dark blue, look at this one, is 38%. So compared to the growth of everybody in the city, the ones that are dark blue, the mild one, they didn't see, I mean, everybody went up because Nashville is growing and every area is changing the last 4 years. But some areas more than the others. The lady that I was talking to when I was using my friend in Antioch as an example, live in East Nashville. And you would think that East Nashville will have a very high rate. You see areas with 54, 52, but when you look at this Nashville, which is like 5, it's 46. You would think because of all the things going on in the stadium that would change. But remember that the stadium is not complete. And so those are the kind of things. But the Tangent outlet in Antioch is complete. And there's a lot of things that happen in Antioch in the last 4 years. And that's why you see some of those areas gone up a little bit. And so depending on what district you live in, that is what will determine, based on the calculations, this is the growth that we've seen. The average growth in the city, in the county, is 45%. So you have some that are on the low end that had 38, and you have some that are on the very high spectrum in Bellevue right here with a 54% increase. So the other thing that I wanted to, and Ms. Vonda, thank you for, and I should have thanked the IBEW Local 429 for letting us host this year, and all of my union leaders and community leaders that are here. Thank you for showing up. And Ms. Vonda, who is also serving as my assistant, I'm making the president. See how rude I am. But if you will be looking at the Facebook and see if there are comments or questions as we go along, I will appreciate it. So one thing that I wanted to make sure that I also share with folks is that when they do this, you do have the right to appeal. So there is an appeal process, again, on that website that gives you the deadline to appeal. So there is an informal appeal, which is the first step. That ended yesterday. The informal appeal is just mean that you just call them and say, you value my house at 300,000. I think it's less than that, or maybe I think it's more than that. And they just take your call, and then they come out and decide to look at your thing. So that is the informal appeal. But that's not the end of it. If you missed the deadline yesterday to just make an informal call, you can actually make a formal appeal. Or if you're not satisfied with the result of the informal appeal, you can go ahead to schedule a formal appeal. And the way to do that is you go ahead and call this number right here, 615-862-6059. And you call them between May 12th, which is coming Monday, and June 27th. Okay, so you still have about a month and a half. So it's not over. If you missed that informal review yesterday, there's still opportunity to still say, why is my property this high? So we've been telling people that are calling that, don't worry about it. There's still opportunity to get it done. Now, after you do that, they will go ahead, the Board of Equalization will take a look at it, and they will make a determination. If they still come back and they still said, no, your property value is what it is, and you're still not okay with that, then you have about 45 days I think if you do not agree with them, you can still appeal the decision of the MBOE. And so, while I understand people are upset, while I understand that everybody is shocked, myself inclusive, to see the value of their property rights, I want to be able to make sure that we understand, one, Nashville is growing. Two, the taxes, the increase is not just based on your house, is everything going on in your neighborhood. Three, that is not the end of it all. You can appeal and you have the right to appeal. And so people can go ahead and start making sure that they do that. If you do not appeal, then that's it, meaning that you're agreeing with it. But I think it's very important for people to be aware that they have that appeal. So that is it with the reappraisals in a nutshell. If there are questions, in the chat, and we can take questions from the audiences later, then we can look at that. But that's something that we do every 4 years. And we did it 4 years ago, and here we are again. Why do we have to do that? Because one, the city is growing. Two, it's a requirement. It's not something we don't do, something we have to do. It's a law. And so this is where we are. And to everybody that have a question, the assessor of property is the one that does the reappraisal, is the one that set the values, and that's where you go to let them know. I want to then move on to, so now you got your property value. The next question we're talking about is your property taxes. Now that your value is gone up, I have people that are emailing me and calling about my rate has gone up so much. And when I look at what I had or what I paid last year and what I'm paying now, is the screen showing on Facebook as well? Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. And so when you go to the assessor of property, what people have been doing and calling me is they're still using this estimate your taxes to try and figure out their taxes for this year. So on the, and we'll talk about certified tax rate in a minute, but what people have been doing is they go to this place, they put their address, and then they try to calculate what their tax is. The problem with this is that the rate that is still showing here, let me see if I can, okay, I'm in the GSD. The rate that you're still looking here is the rate from last year. And so when people go to this and say, let me try and figure out how much taxes that I owe, when you put your new property value and you put it on this screen, definitely, bless you, is going to be more. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to pay more, but I'm just saying that this is not the rate that you want to do. So that brings me to a conversation about the concept of certified tax rate. So, and the way that I try to explain this to folks, and I did a blog about 4 years ago, which is on my website. If you go to my website and look on the blog, you will see some of my blogs and my conversations over the years. This one was 4 years ago because we did reappraisal 4 years ago. And so that explained this concept very well. And basically what the concept is that it's called truth in taxation law. There's a law that says that local government cannot make more money in a reappraisal year on existing property than they made last year. Okay, that's the truth in taxation. If we as a city made 50,000 on our properties last year, because the value of those property went up this year, we cannot benefit from those properties going up. So your house, and I'll demonstrate this in a minute, if we can see the slide. So this is my blog from 2020, and I don't know if you all can see this. So in this illustration, so let's say all of the properties in Davidson County, the total value of everything is 200,000. And our certified tax rate last year is 25 cents. So the value of the property tax revenue that we got will be 50,000. So you take your property values countywide, you multiply it by your tax rate, and it gives you 50,000. Okay. So now in a reappraisal year, the property values have gone up. Instead of 200,000, all of the property are now worth 250,000, right? So now the value has gone up. And so if you multiply that 250 by the 25 cents, you will get 62,000. So what the truth in taxation law says is that you cannot make 62,000. You only have to make 50,000 like you did last year. So the way to do that is we cannot adjust the value of the property down, so we adjust the tax down. So in this example, so what's going to happen is now that we have 250,000 in property value, our tax rate now goes down to 20 cents. So that when we do the 250 and 20 cents, we get that 50,000. And that's basically what that truth in taxation law is saying, is that because people's houses have gone up, you cannot use last year rate, which is the 2.92 that was on the website. If you use that, we will get more money. So then we have to reduce that tax rate so that we don't make more than we made last year this year. Now, there is a way to change it. The council can vote and say, even though it's gone down, we want to increase it, but that's usually the general concept. Now, there is an illustration here in this blog, and I hope you all can see it. It might be too small, but you can read it on my website. So in 2016, and I have not updated for this year, but I wanted to use it still as an illustration. So if you have a property, in 2016, our tax rate was 3.924. Right? In 2017, 2.755. If you have a home in, and I use Forest Hills as an example, it could be Belmont, it could be Antioch, it could be East Nashville. The value of the property was 500,000 in 2016, right? When we had that 200,000 and the rate was 0.25. In 2017, the house is still 500,000. So now that our rate is gone from 25 cents to 20 cents, that property is going to pay less taxes. But if you have a home, another part of the town, where the property value actually went up. So this home was 120,000 in 2016. It's now 240,000, excuse me, in 2017. Look at the difference. Even though the tax rate went down, because the property value went up, this home is paying more taxes. So that's why everybody's story, history, rate is different. While our taxes is going to be uniform, the rate is uniform, the impact on each of us is different, depending on did our value go up and how much it went up. So the people that had 38% increase in their property value will have a lower impact than the people that had 54% increase on their taxes. And so that is that. And so I wanted to at least let everyone understand that. I know there might be a question with that later. There is a question already?
There is a question.
Okay, all right, I'd like to take that.
So the question is from Rhonda Harden, and she asked, we own a property on Jefferson Street with no building on it, and its value recently increased significantly. Is the property appraised based solely on the land?
If there's no, your property is appraised based on the land and the building. The real estate is the old thing, right? Even for properties that have a house on it, they still appraise the land and the building. So when you go to the assessor property website and you're looking at your building value, you will see the land value, you will see the structural value. So even if there's no building on it, the land will still be valued. And so what happened is land in that area, actually, I can't remember, Toombs can attest to this, that there's some areas where the land is actually the driving force of the number going up. So the land in the area is gone up so much that you could have a land, and Jefferson Street will be one of those that may not have anything on it, or some may even have a building on it, but the land is so high, the structure itself is not as high because it's old. So yes, ma'am. So that's what happened in that case. But remember again, like we said, there's still a process to appeal if somebody is not okay with what it's appraised right now. Do you have any other question?
No.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Randa, for that question. Again, I know that people are still trying to grapple with it between the access of property, and all of us will try to explain as best as we can and try to get us where we need to go. And I try to explain to people also is that the government is like all of us as well, right? Now, while our minimum wage have not increased and maybe we're not getting increased salary, we can all say that our expenses has gone up. Things are costing more than what they cost 4 years ago. And so what we're paying for things is gone up. And so that's where we are. That's where the government finds itself as well, because all the services and things that the government needs to provide for the people, we cannot pay for it at the same rates that we paid 4 years ago. And so there is a parallel in that. Look, I'm a citizen. My property taxes went up. Am I crazy about it? No. But there is a reality of where we are. It's a lot of fun when we sell that house and we make all that money. You know, that's part of what we're seeing here. So I want to make sure that we explain that. And so that is it on the certified tax rate. Again, I ask folks they can go and read this from 4 years ago. But if people have questions while we're here, we're going to go ahead and continue to talk about it. And so I'm going to now segue to, we've talked about the reappraisal really briefly. We've talked about the property taxes, the impact of the appraisal on the property taxes, not all in details. But then Councilmember Toombs is going to take us into talking about the mayor's budget, what that looked like this year, including this property tax piece of it. And then we can then go into some more questions about that. So, Councilmember Toombs, you want me to, let me pull it up here. Again, folks, please ask us questions. We want this to be interactive. We want to be able to answer your questions and help also figure out. You did? Oh, you did. Okay, all right. Let me pull that. I spent all of last year making fun of Councilmember Toombs, not knowing how to use the, neither one of us is technologically savvy. And you would think that we've been doing this long enough that we should know it by now, but we haven't. So please bear with us. We can talk. We just, no, I don't have it. Where did you send it? Look again. Yes, ma'am. To the same email? Okay, all right. All right. I will. Can folks hear us very well on Facebook? Is the sound okay? All right, thank you. Do you, to the folks that are here while we're pulling up the presentation on the mayor's budget, do you all have any question while we're setting that up? Roll with it. Thank you, Mr. Cersei. Where did it go? I think I'm still seeing the old one. So let me do this again. I see downloading. Okay, all right, let's see. Now, turn off your audio and mic and all of that. Okay. Want to do a slideshow?
Mm-hmm.
Slideshow from beginning. Okay. All right. Oh,
Most of
I
the
got it.
ones.
Let me also. What am I doing? You know
I
what
don't know
I'm
what you're
doing?
doing.
I don't know what I'm doing either. I don't know what I'm doing either. I want to share screen before I do that. That's it.
Okay. Go to your Zoom.
I know, but then it goes away. See, okay, now let's share that screen. And now see, I got all of that open. Which one is it?
Slideshow. Should be this one.
Okay, Rhonda said thank you for answering.
Oh, no, no problem. We thank you for joining and for asking that question too. Okay. Is that one is showing? Okay, let me close a bunch of stuff so that
Oh, I like the color of your slideshow.
I do not. I do not. I was like, you can barely see this
You
thing.
can see it perfectly.
No, you can barely see this thing. I was like, why is she doing that?
It's got a little pizzazz to it.
I don't know about that. Big and green, yeah. I mean, look, I'm not knocking down the sister and
You closed it out.
okay, all right. Well, I think I have I have the old one open. I need to make sure I have the correct one.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? This is the
This
old
is-
one. That's the one without the 10. So let's make sure that we do that now. And okay, so I think it's this.
Yeah, you can click on any one of the top two.
No, it would be the below one. That one is 944. This is
Okay.
1032. See, you don't want the wrong one. Okay, all right. So now slideshow from beginning. Then
You want to go and share your screen.
okay. Sorry about this. We're almost there. This one.
Slideshow.
You sure?
We're about to find
You're
out.
fine. Okay. All right, just show it again. Is that
That's
the
what people can see.
what can you all see? I think this is still the wrong one. Why wouldn't it go away? Yeah, the one that we want is still open. Okay. Let me just see what's going on my computer. I need this up because I want to. Okay. 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 None is open.
I go back.
So what is it? Okay, so now let's make sure we have the right one. Sorry about that. Are you sure you changed it?
I did.
No, you did not.
I took a slide out. It's not there. I had an agenda slide from another presentation.
So, but the number did not change.
Huh? What? Oh, put
I couldn't edit it. So just let them know.
That's show on my thing.
that's
Oh,
it's still, yeah. Just
I'm pretty sure that's 0000.
oh yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
is. Okay. So that's see, it's not me. All right, okay. We're good. Sorry about that, everyone.
I think just make it smaller instead of closing out, just shrink it. Then
You wanna show you know how to do you're more technically whatever that mean now.
Smidge. Are you in your Zoom?
I am in my Zoom on here.
Okay.
I'm in my Zoom. Let me just say it's just don't worry about it.
Okay, there we go. Right there.
Okay, all right. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I am Councilwoman Quante Toombs, representing District 2. I'm also the Vice Chair of the Budget and Finance Committee. This is my, this is our sixth budget. So we, have a little bit of insight. I've served as Chair of the Budget and Finance Committee and Vice Chair for a few years. So we're gonna dive into the mayor's proposed budget. All right, so I like to include a revenue growth chart so that folks can see how our revenues have changed over the years, at least over the length of time that we have been in office. You know, as we know, when we came into office, fiscal year 2021, which is during the COVID times, we weren't seeing, when we came into office in 2019, we were in a bad place fiscally. At that time, we were selling off assets to, which counts as one-time revenue to pay for recurring expenses. And as you know, if you sell something that, if you have an expense and it's $200 a month, and you sell something for $200, so you have that $200 for that 1 month, but what do you do for the next month? And so that is the type of financial situation that we found ourselves in as a city. We had a lovely visit from the comptroller's office 2 months into our term, who basically said that we need to get our act together. And so we were able to go back and make some adjustments and have a structurally balanced budget. And when we say structurally balanced, by state law, our expenses, our revenue has to equal our expenses. So you can't have more expenses than you have recurring. You can't have more recurring expenses than you have recurring revenue. It has to balance out to zero. So as we know, in, was it 2020, we did the property tax increase. That was the last time we did a property tax increase. It was about a 34% increase. That was necessary to get us to right our financial ship, to start what we call our fund balance, which is where we keep 2 months worth of expenses for the city. At the time that COVID hit, we had about 2 weeks worth of cash. So fortunately, the federal government pumped out a lot of money. People also changed their spending habits. So instead of, going out to eat, people were shopping a lot. And so our sales tax revenue did not have a significant negative impact. So we were able to survive those times. As we know, Nashville has experienced a lot of growth in the city, a lot of tourism that we haven't experienced in the past. And so we have enjoyed some fairly good revenue growth. Now we are getting to a time, if you look at the chart at fiscal year 25, the projected revenue growth is 1.8%, which is actually normal. And what our finance department has projected going forward is that we're basically returning to normal times. And you'll see that in a later slide, what their projected revenue growth is for all of our revenue sources other than property tax. And so for fiscal year 2026, the projected revenue is not $3 million. It is $3,799,676,000. And that is a 15.6% increase over last year. And I do like to note that once we get that number from finance, that's the number. The projected revenue, only the finance director per our charter has the authority to set revenue projections. So the council can't say, oh, we think we're going to bring in more money and change that number, or we think we're going to bring in less money and change that number. That's the number that we have. So where does this money come from? This $3,799,676,000. Where does it come from? Well, 57% of it comes from property taxes. That is our largest revenue source. I'm fairly certain that is true of any city, county in the country. That is the largest revenue source, is property taxes. Then we have our local option sales tax, which is about 19.4%. We have other governmental agencies. So we do get grants and things like that from the state as well as the federal government. That's 12.5%. All other revenues, that's license fees. We do have like some small taxes that we charge, like a business tax, and that's about 10.5%. And then for this fiscal year, we're using a smidge, I think it's about $20 million of our fund balance. So it's like half of a percent. All right. So where's the money going? So we bring in all of this money. What are we doing with it? So our largest single expense is education. It's 36.39% this upcoming fiscal year. Then we have public safety and justice. That's our police, that's the courts, every district attorney's office, public defender's office, anything dealing with fire, anything dealing with public safety and justice, 21%. General government is basically pretty much everything else. It's 11%. Debt service is 11.5%. Infrastructure and transportation, 5.36%. Health and social services, 4.8%. Recreation and culture, 4%. In all other categories, it's about 5%.
Question
Yes, sir.
of the public safety portion of the budget. What percent of that is the Metro Police Department's budget?
So I have not done the calculation for fiscal year 26, but in the past, Metro Police, if you take the overall budget, they're about 10% of it. So looking at that new revenue that's going to be coming in for fiscal year 2026. So again, the $3.7 billion is a 15.6% increase over fiscal year 2025. We know that our budget has to be structurally balanced, which means your recurring revenue equals your recurring expenses. So our total expenditures are $3.66 billion. Then we have a fund balance restoration, which is $64.1 million. That means that revenues didn't come in like we thought they would for fiscal year 25. So that means we're going to have to dip into our fund balance, which is the purpose of fund balance, but we have to put that money back. That's part of our policy that if we take it out, we have to put it back. And then we have a new thing for this upcoming fiscal year called a budget sustainability fund. And that is going to be our fund that we use if revenue projections are not what we anticipate them to be. So that is an additional fund on top of our fund balance.
And I want to take a pause there because those two concepts, I want people to understand what it is in layman terms, because it's a big amount in our budget this year that people are not used to seeing. And we remember when Councilmember Jones was talking about the comptroller coming, it's part of that when the restoration, you did not have enough money or your payroll went down.
Mhm.
The money you're taking on went down, right? You lost your job, something happened, whatever it is, the money went down, but your bills did not stop.
Mhm.
You have to keep paying the bills, right? And so when we did that, we dipped into our savings,
Mhm.
which we've done in the past. But one of the things that the decision we made in the last couple of years, we don't want to go back to where the comptroller is coming again. So we said, anytime we dip into our savings, when we make money back, we put it back.
Mhm.
So that we can make ourselves whole again. So that's what that restorative balance is, to make sure that we don't keep dipping and then not putting the savings back and find ourselves in that spot. And then the sustainability is a new concept to say that, okay, we don't want to just keep dipping into every saving. Let's have this other little money here on this side so that anytime we're running short, before we dip into the large pot, we're going to make this one a CD. We can't touch it for 4 months, but we have this little savings account here that's what we will use first. And those are two things that when you're looking at our numbers this year is a little bit different and higher.
Right. So, and the fund balance, the way we have it set up, it's supposed to be for one-time expenses. Whereas this budget sustainability is a certain percentage that the finance director has the authority to dip into. So it's a rainy day fund that the finance director has the authority to dip into if we're not bringing in enough money to pay our expenses.
Let me also, because this is one thing that somebody had emailed me and said, you all are increasing our property taxes. Are you doing this so you can be saving money, or you're putting it into services? I think it's very good. So when I get those type of questions, I want to make sure that we are addressing it. So what the finance director can do with this sustainability is that the way that I was talking about it is Joseph and his dreams, right? When you have the years of surplus and you have the years of scarcity. In the years of surplus, you put them all aside. Then when you have the scarcity, you can use it. We've also told the finance director that it's a range. So it's a 1 to 6%. So it will be going up and down. Years that we really need to put money out, that rate will be down. It will be adjusted. If we need to put money up, so that's what we will keep doing. I think we all want to make sure, and I know the concept might be difficult for all of us, but we want to make sure that the city keep running. We want to make sure that we can have our fire department come out if something happens. We want to make sure that our school keeps going. And if we don't plan right, we may end up in a place where, and we all don't want to go back to the comptroller coming to see us. So that's what that is. It's not a slush fund for the government, but it is a fund to help government continue to keep services going on.
Okay, and so the total increase in revenue is $529 million. 20 million of that would go to replace money in the fund balance. No, it's 20 million, I'm sorry, is from the fund balance, and 509 million is from the new revenue. So where is this new revenue coming from? So property taxes is the largest source of it. It's $483.6 million. Then you've got your local option sales tax, which is $15.6 million. Other government agencies, that's your grant funds, that's $0.6 million. And then all other sources is about $9.4 million, which I believe gives you about 25, other than property taxes, about $25 million in new revenue. And the finance department has looked at the market and what's going on in the economy. And as I said earlier, they are projecting that we're basically getting back to normal. We've had all this astronomical growth in the city, but now we're getting back to what normally happens in the economy. And so they're projecting for revenue sources other than property taxes that those revenue sources will grow by 1.6%. So basically, we're not going to get much from those other revenue sources. And so in order to be able to continue to provide services at the rate we provide them, we have to have sufficient growth in our property tax revenue. Now, what that growth looks like is up for debate, but we do have to have sufficient growth in our property tax revenue in order to maintain our services. Otherwise, we have to look at what needs to be cut. So, and Councilwoman Sawyer, I believe, got into this some before I got here, the certified tax rate versus the recommended tax levy. Right now, our certified tax rate is the 3.254. The proposed certified tax rate is 2.22.
And that is the combined. Well, when I showed the 2.9, that was just the GSD.
Right.
So if you live in the USD, the combined
GSD and right. And I live in the USD, so I always think USD and GSD. And the proposed Urban Services District and the General Services District. So we are all, the entire county is the General Services District, but then there is a portion of the county that is also the Urban Services District. And the only difference is in the services provided. USD Urban Services District gets a smidge more services, whether it's trash and street lights and maybe one other thing that we get that the GSD doesn't get. So everybody pays that General Services District rate, and then that small portion of the county that is also Urban Services District pays basically an upcharge.
Now, the Urban Services District is also experiencing increase in sidewalks and curbs, gutters, right, versus the general service.
You know, I don't know, but I can look into that. So the comment from the audience is that the Urban Services District is getting more sidewalks and curbs and gutters than the General Services District. I don't know if that's true or not. That would be a NDOT question, but we can find out and see if there's a difference in basically the infrastructure improvements in the USD versus the GSD. But the proposed certified tax rate, which is your revenue neutral tax rate, as Councilwoman Sarah explained, we are not allowed by state law to generate more revenue from existing properties this year than we did the prior year. And so that revenue neutral rate is the 2.222. The recommended tax rate in the mayor's proposed budget is 2.814. And that percent difference is about a little less than 27%, 26.6% difference in the mayor's proposed rate and the proposed certified tax rate, which has to be approved by the state. The certified tax rate has to be approved by the state.
So let's take a minute here. And I think it's very, very critical for people to understand this part. When you look at 3.29, but the mayor is proposing 2.8, right? That is going down because of all the increase in property values that went up. And because of that rule that we have to be neutral, that tax rate actually went down from last year because we're going from 3.9 to 2.8, right? But then when you're talking about the mayor's is increasing taxes, what people are referring to is that the 2.22 and the 2.84. So I wanted to make sure that, and this is a very good way to look at that, to see what those numbers look like. But whichever way you're looking at, from last year to this year, we're actually down. And compared to most of our peer cities, our rate is actually lower than most places. So I don't want people to get confused with, I thought you said it went down, then what are you talking about? Increase, what is the 20% increase is about? It's just that even though it's 2.22 that it's supposed to be, because the mayor is proposing 2.8, that's where that increase is coming from.
And just a side note, I want to give slide credit to the finance department. Some of these are cut and paste. So it's not pink or green. It's a cut and paste. Thank you, finance department, for these slides.
Hey, why reinvent the wheel, right?
Exactly. And that 2.22, that is the rate that is needed in order for it to be revenue neutral. So as Councilwoman Sarah talked about, you have a 45% countywide average appraisal growth, property value growth. And so if you're lower than that average, typically you'll see your property tax bill go down. If you're higher, you'll typically see it go up. And so the rate that achieves that is the 2.22. However, the council does have the authority to go above that rate in order to capture additional revenue. And that is what the mayor's proposed budget attempts to do. And also this year, there is an increase in the GSD to accommodate for a study. So there was a study conducted comparing the services offered in the urban services district versus the general services district, because there was a belief that the general services district wasn't getting all that it was paying for. And so the result of that study actually showed that the general services district was getting services that it was not paying for. So it wasn't getting less services, it was actually getting more services for the amount of money that it was paying. And so there's been some adjustments. So if you were to study the budget ordinance, I'm sure that's, entertaining reading for everyone. But if you were to look at the budget ordinance, you'll see, for example, that fire, the cost for fire was split between the general services district and the urban services district. But when they looked at how those services were actually allocated, fire needed to be totally in the general services district. And so that's going to adjust the property tax rate for the general services district so that they can actually pay for the services that are being received. All right, so this, if you remember, I talked about the new revenue is about $529 million. So what are we doing with that $500 million? Well, one proposed use of that $500 million is the pay plan. which is a total of $55.8 million. Historically, Metro has balanced the budget on the backs of its employees. We've not done cost of living adjustments. We've not done raises. We've eliminated steps in the past because we needed to have that structurally balanced budget. And unfortunately, oftentimes the employee salaries are the low hanging fruit. And so for the past several years, we have tried as a governing body to make up for that and to pay our employees who provide the services that we need as a city. So, and another thing that was done was there was a market study done to compare what we're paying our employees versus what they're paying in the private sector. And that's not something uncommon. That was done on the state level. State also did a market study. They've done a couple of market studies to see how state employees were being paid versus folks doing similar work in the private sector, because you want to attract the best talent. And so you should be paying folks what, basically paying people their worth. And so we have the pay plan, which is a total of $55.8 million. So that accounts for the adjusted pay structure. So all of the job classifications, their salary ranges have been adjusted so that they're more reflective of what's happening in the private sector. And also we had situations where folks were maxing out. So they were getting to the top of their salary range and there was nowhere else for them to go, but they've only been on the job maybe 10, 15 years, and they've got a lot more work to, a lot more working years, and they're not seeing any adjustment in their salary. So the change in the pay range basically gives them more runway. So there's more opportunity for them to make additional money. And so there's also a 1% pay increase across the board. That's for everybody, 1% pay increase. And then there's the 2% merit raises. And there's some other things that go, yes.
They've also added an additional 5 steps.
Yes. They've added an additional 5 steps to the step plan. So instead of there being 10 steps, they're now 15 steps. And I believe those will happen on is it every year?
Yes, so instead of steps where we used to receive steps every 2 years, now steps will be given every year.
Right.
Employees who are maxed out at the top of the step plan have an opportunity to earn more as well now.
Okay, so instead of steps being given every 2 years, they'll be given every year. Employees who are at the top of the step plan also still have opportunity to make additional money under this new pay plan. And then for folks who do not have steps, there's a 2% proposed merit raise.
And we will be doing, so the HR director will be coming to the budget conversation to discuss this new plan. And so after that, I will be doing a budget conversation on employees and pay plan with our union leaders and all of that. So we'll have an in-depth conversation about this in the next, in another budget conversation. Yes, sir.
Now, one of the things that the employees have sought, the public sector employees have sought is a COLA. And does the mayor's budget contemplate a cost of living increase across the board in the budget proposal?
I think they call
So-
it that, but
I think the naming of it has changed, and it's also the proposed change in how it's calculated. So instead of being tied to the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, CPI is what we're paying for goods and services, will be tied to the ECI, Employer Cost Index. So what are employers paying? So that cost of living adjustment will be tied to that calculation. And I know there's some debate as to whether or not that's a good thing or not. And so we'll let the HR director dive into that. But
Yeah.
it's still baked into how we pay employees, but the calculation is different.
and like I said, we will have one of the budget conversations that we have, because the pay plan is a new one. And so we want her to present it to see what it is. So that way we can then come back and have a more robust conversation after that presentation.
Mhm. And I want to,
Councilmember
Yes.
Porterfield said that the HR director will also be at the first budget work session.
the HR director will also be at the first budget work session.
Is it on Monday? Is that, it's HR the number one on there?
Work session.
Oh,
not-
work
not
session,
the-
not budget hearing, work session.
Those start.
That'll be in June.
I have a
We have the
calendar
calendar
here.
at the end of the presentation.
I'll tell you
So
by the
we-
end of the presentation.
We don't have it.
And I want to, I know. And I want to point out, keep in mind, so this pay plan to pay our employees what they deserve to be paid is $55.8 million. And I want to go back to the sources of our revenue. So when we talked about having the, what is it, the $529 million in additional revenue, 509 of that is coming from new revenue. These, other than property taxes, our other revenue sources are $25 million. The pay plan by itself is $55.8 million. So if we only have, outside of property tax, because we got to be revenue neutral unless we change the tax rate, our other revenue sources are $25 million.
So
Okay.
basically, it's not enough
It's
to
not
cover
enough.
the pay plan in
Correct.
layman terms.
Correct. It's not enough to cover the pay plan.
And
We're doing more. We're at education. So we're looking at $132 million for schools. That's a 13% increase from last year. So we have to have the revenue to cover that increase for schools, $132 million. The 56, we'll say 56 million for the pay plan. So we're at $188 million in new revenue that we need to pay our employees and to take care of our students. And we've seen so much progress in our schools. They've had, in 2024, Metro Schools had the highest graduation rate on record. Metro Schools is the only district of the 100 largest urban districts to rank in the top 10 in both math and reading for post-pandemic recovery 2 years in a row. We want to keep that momentum going. The things that they are doing at MNPS, they are working. Our students are improving. I know folks look at testing a lot, and I don't want to get too much into that because that's a school board issue. But the truth of the matter is that our kids are improving, and they've been improving significantly over the past few years. And that happens to align that we've been funding them appropriately over the past few years. And so we want to keep doing that so we can keep seeing that progress. And I also want to point out, because I see often still this sentiment that Metro underfunds schools. And I want to, and I always show a couple of slides to folks so that folks can see how our schools are funded. So total funding for Metro schools, looking at fiscal year 24, local funding is about 79%. 79% of schools' budget comes from Metro. So that $1.5 billion that you saw in that previous slide, 79% of that comes from Metro. We give over $1 billion to schools. 21% comes from the state.
Mhm.
Now, looking at how state funding is calculated,
Mhm.
if you look statewide, local governments pay 28% for their schools, and the state pays 72%. If you look at, based off the state funding formula, what Metro should get is 43% of its funding from the state, and Metro should be paying 57%. And then you see what is actually happening, in that we only get 23% from the state, as opposed to that 43%. So rather than leave our schools hanging, we make up the difference. And I will say that the state's rationale for that is that because we are a larger city with more financial resources, that we can handle it.
Mm.
So we don't get the money that we're supposed to get, and Metro makes up the difference. Yes, ma'am. Is there a question in the audience?
So we have been
watching this for a few years now as the state continues to decrease the amount of monies that they give to our schools
Mhm.
across the state. You know, we're just because we're there, and we're not the only ones, but how or when are we gonna demand that Governor Lee do his part? When are we gonna demand that Governor
So-
Lee does his part? Because if Freddie can't find the money, if council can't find the money, our students are going to suffer.
So the question is, when are we gonna start demanding that the state do its part and give metro schools the money that it's owed under the funding formula? And I believe that, and I don't want to speak for the school board, but I believe there was a lawsuit a few years ago over funding for MMPS, and either that lawsuit got resolved or it was dropped. I don't remember the circumstances, but the school board has fought for funding from the state for metro schools. So I don't want folks to think that we're just like, oh, okay, I guess that's, that's what we get. The school board has been a strong advocate for getting more funding for metro schools. All right, other places that we intend, or the mayor has proposed to spend the new revenue is 15.3 million funding increase for Nashville Fire, $24.7 million funding increase for Metro Police. And this writing is small, so I'll read it. That funding would pay for a new transit division, additional school resource officers, and a permanent flex unit. That flex unit is the unit that is available when officers are changing shifts. And that is supposed to address the complaints that MMPD gets regarding response times. So that is supposed to assist with that. Under the 15.3 million for Metro Fire, that is a new truck company for Antioch, South Nashville, additional personnel countywide, new EMS unit, fire marshal, and co-responders. I believe a study has been done, and the fire chief has stated that there aren't enough fire resources for a city our size. And so over the past several years, we have tried to add on to the resources for that department so that we can be able to adequately provide services for the city. $11 million funding increase for emergency communication staff, Office of Family Safety staff, courts, clerks, district attorney, and public defender, plus implementation of the Office of Youth Safety and a Director of Violence Prevention. Investing in reliable resources, $45 million commitment to initiate the unified housing strategy, a comprehensive plan to build and preserve more affordable housing, plus new funding for trash collection, new Department of Waste Services to manage solid waste, parks, new funding for safety in parks and community centers, health and wellness programs, funding for Nashville Strong Babies, HIV, STI prevention and treatment, vaccinations, mobile health programs, mental health support, and nighttime codes inspectors. And so when you look at all of these proposed investments, you have to really think, what are you willing to invest in as a city? We have limited sources of revenue. As Councilwoman Srour explained, expenses increase for government as well. So what we could pay, what $100 paid for last year won't pay for the same things this year. And so we have to increase our revenue. Think about, if you're working on a job, would you work on a job for 20 years and never receive a raise? Like, you're going to expect regular raises on any job that you're in, because your wages have to keep up with the cost of living. And for government, on a personal level, we want to make more money oftentimes so we can pay our expenses, but then we also like nice things. On a government level, we have to pay our expenses, and the nice things are the services. The nice things are being able to fill the potholes, being able to pick up your trash, making sure your children are educated, making sure there's emergency response when you need it. So we have to be able to pay for those things as a government. So here is the budget calendar. So we've next council meeting is the first reading of the mayor's budget. We never discuss bills that are on first reading. We have our budget hearings coming up. So the mayor does his thing and presents his budget. Now it's in the council's court for us to dive in and get information from departments and really look at how the mayor has proposed to allocate the monies. And we have to decide as a body whether we agree with those allocations, if we want to move some things around. And keep in mind that when we're moving things around, historically, the council is not moving hundreds of millions of dollars. We're usually moving maybe 10 to $20 million into priorities, into what we think are higher priorities. And because we have to have a structurally balanced budget, meaning recurring revenue has to equal recurring expenses, when you see us moving money around, we're taking it from one place and putting it in another. We're not creating new money. And so we have our public hearing is on June 3rd. That is the public's opportunity to come out and say, give us your opinion on the budget. Tell us what you would like to see in the budget. Council members, we take that information back. We have the opportunity to present what's called a wish list to the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee, who is Councilwoman Delisha Porterfield. And she takes that information and creates a substitute budget. We do have those. I don't have the work sessions on my, okay, because I was hoping somebody would respond while we were talking. May 28th. So our first budget work session starts on May 28th. Those are open to the public. And that is an opportunity for council members who are interested to come and basically talk things out. Because we do want to come to a consensus as a council and pass a budget. Because if we don't, as a council, pass a budget by June the 30th, then the mayor's proposed budget automatically becomes the city budget on July 1. So if you don't like, I'm sorry, someone said
It's
something, but if you don't like what's in the mayor's budget, or you think some things should change, I would suggest that you reach out to your council member and let him or her know what you think those proposed changes would be, and then encourage other council members to adopt those changes. Because again, if we can't come to an agreement and pass a budget by June 30th, the mayor's proposed budget becomes the budget on July 1. And for the past several budget cycles, the council has passed I'm being told 4 budget cycles, the council has passed a substitute budget.
You have a
Yes,
question?
ma'am.
The 5th budget that the council members passed, because as a local leader of the union, we do want the language to amend it to ensure that it has the word in there with the cost of living increase. We believe that it's important for that language to be in there, to be amended. So we are hopeful that when our council members get together and
Bless you.
that you all look at amending.
And we'll be having a session with the union leaders, a conversation at some point. Noted.
That is duly noted that
And just for reference, for those who don't know, with the new pay plan, this language was changed as a recommendation from the firm that did the study. We are not in support of the language. We tried to get it changed in civil service. They refused to change it. We failed by 1 vote. So as leaders, we are looking for that to be changed. And of course, we'll bring that to you guys when the time is right. But we want to call it what it is. It's a cost of living adjustment. It's not a raise. So we want to make sure that we understand what that is.
And the community supports
That.
union leadership because the cost of eggs are not controlled by the ECI.
Gotcha. And I wanted to go back real quickly. So in doing the revenue projections, the finance department looked at how much money do we need to operate they looked out how much money do we need to operate as a city over the next 3 years. So in doing that, the revenue projections plus in choosing what's an appropriate tax rate. And this is from the mayor's office perspective, what's an appropriate tax rate? Because what is going to generate sufficient revenue over the next 3 years? Because in 3 years is when the next reappraisal is going to happen. So I am told that in the Dean administration and earlier that it was the standard to raise the property tax rate when there was a reappraisal. So there was every 4 years, there was a reappraisal, there'd be an adjustment in the property tax rate. But then, as you know, we got away from that. And there hadn't been, prior to 2020, there hadn't been an adjustment of the property tax rate in, I believe, 11 years. And so you had a large adjustment in 2020. And so I believe that the idea is to get away from the large adjustments, but it's difficult to do that when you're doing a reappraisal every 4 years, because a lot changes in 4 years. And so the next one is going to be in 3 years. And then the next one after that is 2 years. And I believe the standard is going to be that they'll be done every 2 years. Because the thought process, and this is not speaking on behalf of the council or anything, this is just generally speaking financially, the thought process is doing more incremental increases rather than the big whop that people have seen recently. But obviously every year it's up to the council whether or not there's an adjustment to the tax rate. So this is a conversation we have every year. So it's hard to do a lot of forecasting on the government level just because it can change from year to year. But this council has really tried to put processes and policies in place that looks long-term and puts us on good financial footing, which we've seen the results of that with our credit rating. We have a very high credit rating, which allows us to borrow at very low rates. So it's been working out very well for the city financially. And this last slide is just some resources. You can swap out fiscal year 25 because we have the budget book is coming out, and the budget improvement discussions and modification requests, all of that is on the finance department's website.
All right, let's switch again.
All right.
Actually, the only reason we're switching is because I have some things in mind.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilmember Toombs. Folks online, if you have any comments or you have any question, please put them here. We decided to make it a little bit longer than usual. We typically would do an hour, but because we're looking at 3 broad topics and all of them very important and tied together, we extended it a little bit. And I thought you cannot talk about the mayor's budget without talking about the reappraisal. You cannot talk reappraisal without talking about the property taxes. And so I wanted us to deal with it in one swoop. We may not have spent a whole lot of time, but I think my colleague did a wonderful job. And so if people have comment, question, please put them in so we can go ahead and address that for you. I do want to say that the budget conversation continues next Saturday. And the topic that we will be looking at next Saturday is community safety. I think in light of everything that is going on, we all are worried about safety. And how do we come together? What does that look like for all of us so that we all feel safe? And we don't want to do something that protect a group and then put another group at risk. So what does community safety look like? What are some of the things that we ought to be doing to keep all of our citizens safe? And in light of what the Southeast communities face, all this anguish and fear in our community, honestly, I ask a couple of people that should we be talking budget now? Should we talk safety first? And maybe we should cancel this one and do the next one. But you cannot, the biggest job that we do is the budget. You cannot talk about any other issues in the community without the budget, because anything that we decide to do will be funded, will be money. And so that's why I wanted to lay the ground for this first conversation, which is what we do every year. And then next week we will be doing safety, community safety. What does that look like? And we'll bring a bunch of people to the table. After the community safety, I want to go ahead and start talking about the pay plan and the employees and their compensation with the union leaders and see where we are. The good thing about this conversation, what is done for us over the years, is that this is another way that we hear back from folks, and the conversation that we have and the issues that people raise and suggestions that people make is part of what we take back when we're doing our wish list, when we're doing our adjustment to the budget. So the other thing that we typically do with this every year, we've gone through the mayor's budget, and Councilmember Toombs has done a wonderful job. As part of my questioning for her, I go through the budget from last year and compare it to this year and see if there's any area that we have not basically talk about. So I wanted to, and I also want to use that, we've never done this before, but use it as an opportunity to illustrate. Let me see if I can get in there. Where is mine? Not that one. I had so many things open, so. Okay, I'm gonna have to, did I download it or was I just looking at it on Nashville.gov? So Nashville.gov is where all of our stuff sits. And if you're trying to look at all these things that we've been doing, that's where you go. Why is my cursor not working? Miss IT. I'm trying to get to, thank you. Okay. No. I use Chrome. Uh-huh. I must have okay. I have the ordinance for this year. I wanted to put the 2024 ordinance so I can show.
The 2025 one.
I have the 25 open.
Okay.
I have the 25 open, so I want to look at 24. So this is where all the legislation are, 2024. Look at budget. Okay, so this is the budget ordinance. Okay. I want to show you a couple of things since we're sharing screen, just to give you an idea of some of the things that we do and how all of that work, and why this conversation and you talking to your council people is also very important, because it allows you to see how we make these changes. So this is the budget that was proposed by the mayor last year. And I would not bore you with all the details, but if you look at this, this is where we'll go straight to where the important numbers are. This is what the mayor proposed. This is what we're looking at. I'm gonna try and do a side by side at the points. But for now, you can see this is where we started with the mayor's budget. If I go back, and I'm not going to, and I go to the substitute, which is where the council now make changes to the mayor's budget, the overall budget is not changing. But when you look at this, you will see where the numbers are being crossed out. There you go. You see where there's line on some of the numbers? That is showing where we are now saying, no, take money out of this and put it here. That is our changes. So it does matter for you to be able to talk to the budget chair, for you to be able to talk to your council members, because the mayor's numbers and our numbers sometimes do change. And so that is the effect of that. So in looking at last year numbers and this year numbers, I made a couple of notes, Councilmember Toombs, to be able to look at where we were, and I think we basically covered most of it. The areas that I saw the most change was in the pay plan. And we said that we'll be talking about that later, which you covered very nicely. Another area that I saw a big change was in the fire department. the
Mhm.
128 million.
Mhm.
And I pull it out, Councilmember Toombs talked about it already, but if you're somebody like me that is comparing apples to apples or last year to this year, that's a number that jumped out. And the reason why that number is like that is, like she explained, the study between the USD and the GSD shows that the GSD is not paying enough of the services. And the area where we found out was the fire department. And so that expense went up because now the entire county will be paying for fire services. So when you look at what we budgeted for fire last year, it says 110 million. This year is showing 228 million. And that difference is because all of that. Whoa, water. See, talking too much. Thank you. So when you look at that, law enforcement, and you see the 228, that is what is driving that number. Mr. Cersei, you had asked about the police department. There is the budget for the police department this year, which is the 329 million. And so that's what we do. I'm trying to see, I think we covered all the major increases. There were homeless services went up. There's a mental co-op, all of the services that we're doing. And then we have the fund balance restoration and sustainability. So that was another big one. I want to ask if anyone online has asked a question, Ms. Vanda.
No, we don't have any questions.
Any comments?
Here, Porterville, made comments throughout, but
Oh, awesome.
said that they would be discussed at the work session to
Sessions.
explain the pay
Plan. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Chair Porterfield, for joining. Thank you, everyone that joined online. Mr. Cersei, yes, sir.
Yes, the community review board. Is there a line item? I can't read the print. Is there a line item for that budget?
Where do I see them? Would they be? True. They are there.
There is, because they're a department.
They're there, yeah.
But, I don't know under what heading they fall.
I've
under.
seen them. I don't know on top of my head that I was not. And I saw everybody yesterday. No. Okay, well, they are there. I was looking at the big numbers. The ones that change a lot is what I was looking at last night. But everybody is there. Everybody, all the departments are there. So we'll find it for you before we leave the room. I thought I could do it. You would think it would be right here in Administration of Justice. Yeah, is it administration? All right, we'll find it for you. It's there. It's there. They are a department. They are a department. This is still like a condensed view. We have the book that actually, if I pull up the book for you, which is if you go to our website, if you go to nashville.gov and you just look for the Citizens Guide. Okay, all right, let's go. So if you go into the Citizens Guide, I do not want the ordinance. I want the book. Yes.
Scroll down, it's a link at the.
Oh, you saw it at the bottom. Okay. Citizens Guide to Metro Budget. Where's the book?
The fiscal year 26 book isn't up here.
Oh, it's not. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I was looking for the book, but if you look in that book, you'll find all their numbers, and we'll get it for you. And I'll also make sure to look at the comparison from year to year. But this time around, I was just looking at the big ones and the ones that jump out to me to get ready for this call. But they're there, trust me. They are there. Yes, sir.
Any discussion?
I thought it was law enforcement, but when I was looking at it,
Mr. Shushi, they're their community review board, 2,455,800.
let me pull it up.
They're under law enforcement.
Law
and
enforcement. I
paraphrasing.
thought I did, but then I went right.
2,400,000.
$2,455,800. Yes. Page 14 of the ordinance.
I was right there. I saw the police, the sheriff, and I didn't read the rest of them. Okay. What's your other question, sir? There we go. We're there. We were right there. But there it is.
Was there any discussion about, in the, budget for WeGo? Was there any discussion about developing, the protocols for reducing or eliminating the, fees for, X number of citizens riding WeGo transit?
So that's part of the mayor's proposed budget to start working on that. I believe it's the low income fare plan. But we haven't, as a council, had a chance to dig into what that means. But he did speak to that in his State of Metro address that that was part of his proposal to start working on that.
And anything on the repeal or the reduction of the tax on groceries?
So my
State law.
understanding on the state law that was
State.
passed that allowed local governments to eliminate the grocery tax, that it does not apply to metropolitan government, so it doesn't apply to Nashville. So
Other areas can choose to.
other areas, so city governments and county governments, but we're a metropolitan consolidated government. So we would have to go back and have the state law changed to include Nashville.
Why did they do that? I mean, like,
Councilmember Porterfield, says in the comments, low income fare. Low income fare is part of the CHYM.
Choose how you move.
here's how you move.
And it's supposed to be implemented this year.
It's in your.
We are preempted on eliminating the grocery.
All righty. Oh, you are most welcome, sir. I don't know why the state always pass a bill that exempts us. The same thing with the impact fees. Everybody else can do it, but we cannot do it. This is part of our fight with the states. I wish they would just let us govern the way that we want to govern our citizenship, but that's a discussion for another day. Again, next week, budget conversation, we'll go back to our regular time. We had to do 10 a.m. this morning because my co-host had to go somewhere. But next week, we'll go back to our regular time, which is about 3 p.m. In the afternoon. I'll get the information sent out. The next conversation will be on community safety. And then right after that, we will be talking about the pay plan. By then, Director All would have presented to the council, but I wanted to get the feedback from the union leaders and our community about what they think about that to be able to guide us. We cannot discuss it until it's presented, so we can know everything that it's in it, ask all the questions on council, but also allow you to give us your feedback. Again, it will be budget conversation every Saturday from now until the budget is passed. You have the opportunity to join us on Facebook Live. Look on my Facebook page for dates and time. If we're going to do in person, you will see it there. And if it's all going to be virtual, you will see it there. I want to thank everyone that is watching online. I want to thank Ms. Vonda for linking me with the local 429. I want to thank the local 429 for hosting those that have come to join us in person. Thank you for being here, and everyone that is watching online. My able co-host, I used to do this with Bob Mendes. And and then Bob passed the torch to Quante. And the good thing about it is every time I do it with Bob, it's always on his anniversary. So I'm always apologizing to Sue. So at least it's not your anniversary, it's my anniversary. So we're good. So thank you also very much. These are important conversations. This is way for you to get involved, continue joining us. I appreciate it. And a happy Mother's Day to all the mothers and mother figures out there. Thank you.